everyone, for our first session for the PhD series we're having at the Wits School of Governance. The music I was playing you is by the late legend Oliver Mtukudzi, which says Rirongere. That means plan for it. So this day we are having a great event, in my view, that requires a lot of thinking about how we are governing ourselves and how we plan about our lives in different sectors that we belong. And governance is a key issue we need to think and debate about. So we have a lovely presenter today, Dr. Vuyiwe Tsako, who is going to share a paper relating to the work they've covered on a topic that I will tell you about a little bit later. Before we can do so, I would first want to introduce one of our key panelists, Dr. Robin Drennan, who has a PhD in chemistry from Rhodes University, was awarded which was awarded for a topic that was investigating pyrotechnic reactions. I think Rob is going to tell us more. I'm a social scientist, so forgive me if I mispronounce some of such deep technical terms, but I'll be looking forward to learn more about that as you tell us about the work you're doing relating to research within Wits University. Rob has practiced as an applied researcher in just give me a moment, as an applied researcher in a public company called AECI, and as well as at the CSIR, which is a science council within South Africa. He's worked at a national funding agency, the National Research Foundation, NRF, where we often get our funds to do research as academics and scholars. There he managed many different programs. In 2011, Rob joined the Wits University as Director for Research Development. His role entails leading, encouraging, and supporting research across the university. In 2010, Rob won the Golden Quill Award for research reporting, and in 2017 he had a Sarima Award for distinguished contribution to the research management profession. This is quite an outstanding profile for one of our key panelists, Dr. Rob, who is going to open the session for us and let us know more about where WITS stands in terms of its research vision and also the aspirations that are there for all the academics and scholars we have in the university. Dr. Rob, I give you the platform.
So good morning, and thank you for that kind introduction, Dr. Murambondoro. It is my pleasure to be with you today, and I'm dying to listen to the presentation that Dr. Tsako is going to present for us. But if just a few words about how important research is to the university, and particularly how important postgrad students and their research is important to the university. So you might know that our current research strategy encourages research with impact. Now, just in case anybody thinks that's only applied research in chemistry, where I come from, that's certainly not the case. We see research in three different areas as being equally and vitally important. Discovery research that helps us understand more about disciplines, knowledge for the sake of knowledge. Translational research, research that impacts on practice and policy and making a difference in people's lives. And then innovative research, that's research that we can take to the market to create companies, economic activity, jobs, etc., etc. And all three are very, very important. And it's about making an impact with our research. And then, of course, postgrad student training, vital for WITS. You know, we're on a course to getting our student cohort mix changed. We want as many as 45% of our total student cohort to be postgrad students. So very much we want to see ourselves as a research-led, research-intensive university. And the research is largely done by all those postgrad students. And our desire there is for those students to have a swift, secure, and stimulating experience. Swift in the sense of smooth administration. Secure in the sense of that they know they are safe on campus, they know where their funding is coming from, and they feel secure and able to deal with the challenges of postgrad studies. And stimulating, PhD at Wits shouldn't come for free. It should come with a lot of brain power and investment, but stimulating in the sense that it's rewarding and one sees the fruits of one's hard work. And those fruits often take the form of research publications, journal articles, chapters in books, conference proceedings, and possibly even books, monographs. And so it's so good today to be with you when we listen to an overview of a publication by a PhD student from the School of Governance. And so with those few remarks, I'll hand over to our Director of Ceremonies and look forward to listening with intent and interest to a fascinating article, which I have read in preparation for the meeting, but really need help to understand all the complexities. So with those few words, I'll hand over and say thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rob. Yes, indeed, today we are gathered to engage on a paper that was written by our recent graduate, Dr. Vuyiwe Tsako. We take pride as the Wits School of Government when some of our alumni continue to engage in academic work and producing knowledge. And on that basis, I am so proud that Vuyiwe will be letting us know more about the work that she completed in the PhD project, which has led to publications. A little bit more about the Wits School of Governance. We are an outstanding postgraduate institution within Wits University, and one of our key areas is production of knowledge through the research that is done by our postgraduate students. We start at honors level, which is the postgraduate diploma. We also have our master's studies, and then the PhD program, which is the beacon of our school. And some of the key outputs that our students have been able to do is to produce work that is used in the public space to influence policy. And when we have such moments where our students have managed to produce an article that tackles how government is doing its work in terms of delivering services, what are some of the challenges that are faced by government in providing the services that it has a mandate of doing so to the citizenry, it becomes important to have a well-astounding scholar to let us in on what are the underlying issues and the key recommendations which can be taken up by our policymakers and by the different actors within the government sphere who have a mandate of providing good service to the citizenry. So I want to let you in on who our presenter today is. It is Dr. Vuyiwe Princess Tsako, who has 25 years experience in local government, 15 of which was spent serving at an executive level. This includes being an accounting officer at Umdani Local Municipality, a general manager for corporate services at Ugu District Municipality, senior and executive manager at Nelson Mandela Metropolitan Municipality, the Makana Local Municipality, King Sabata Local Municipality, Kolkama Local Municipality, and Chris Hani District Municipalities. Well, this is somebody who has really been engaged in local governance, and we are in to learn more about, how their research has helped them to enhance the work within the local governance sphere. Vuyiwe is a member of several professional institutes. Amongst them is the Institute for Local Government Managers and Coaches and Mentors of South Africa. In addition, Vuyiwe is a published scholar with more than 4 articles under her belt, and these articles have covered topics that include intergovernmental relations, service delivery, political patronage and factionalism, political instability, amongst others. Of course, Vuyiwe holds a PhD from Wits School of Governance, where the current presentation is drawn from, as well as a BCom in Industrial Psychology and Business Management from Vista University, and honors in Commerce with majors in Business Management, and a master's in Commerce with majors in Labor Relations from Nelson Mandela Metro University. As an outstanding leader, Vuyiwe has won the KZN Premier's Excellence Award for Best Leader in Government, which was a bronze medal, and also a winner in the Businesswoman South Africa Provincial Achievers Award under the category of government in 2015. This was a gold award, and was nominated and became the finalist in the National Standard Bank Top Women's Award under the category of public services in 2016. In addition, she was nominated and became the finalist in the National BWSA Awards and a finalist under the category of Women in Government in 2016 again. Today, Vuyiwe will be sharing an article that was published this year in the Journal of Public Administration. It is titled, "The Effect of Political Environment on Service Delivery, a Study of Political Instability, Patronage, and Factionalism in a Municipal Environment." Vuyiwe, I give you the platform.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Dr. Ruth Murambondoro, and thank you, Dr. Rob, for such a good introductory remarks. Thank you to Wits University for the opportunity, and specifically to Wits School of Governance. As already indicated, I'm Dr. Vuyiwe Tsako. I'm the ex-student I'm the ex-student from Wits School of Governance. Pardon me, I was trying to share the screen. As already indicated, my topic is on the effect of political environment on service delivery, and this was the study of political instability, patronage, and factionalism in a municipal environment. Moving on, this is the structure of my presentation. Start with the introduction, the legislative background, the aim, the political environment, and with specific reference to political instability, patronage, and factionalism. And I'll end my presentation with the recommendations and conclusion. Moving on to the next slide, as already indicated, this paper looks at how service delivery is affected by political instability, patronage, and factionalism in a municipal environment. The study that was conducted in 2018 by Tsako, which is myself, uncovered the association of these factors on service delivery, and further desktop research was undertaken, where in this case, existing resources across municipal settings in South Africa were looked at. I'll now move to the next slide. The next slide provides for legislative background. And I would say that this is a point of departure. As we're all aware, local government and specifically municipalities are the spheres of governments that are closer to the people. And it is expected that local government and municipalities provide services to the community. In providing those services, it is important that the municipalities have to align themselves with the objects of local government as stipulated in the Republic of South Africa Constitution, specifically Section 152. the objects of local government, to be precise, provides that the municipalities should provide satisfactory services to the community. And in so doing, it is important that the municipalities should promote social and economic development, ensure a safe and healthy working environment, involve communities in whatever that they are doing in relation to service delivery, and ensure a democratic and accountable government. The question that is important is whether the political environment in which these institutions, in this respect municipalities, operates, does enable the achievement of these objects. Moving on to the next slide. My next slide speaks to the legislative background. As we are all aware, the municipal environment is highly legislated. However, I've picked up the key legislations that impact on the operations and the functionality of the municipalities. In this regard, I've made reference to the Local Government Municipal Structures Act of 1998, which defines the structures of local government. The second legislation that I've referred to is the Local Government Municipal Systems Act of 2000, which regulates key organizational planning, participatory and service delivery systems. And then we have the Municipal Finance Management Act of 2003, which regulates municipal financial matters. And these types of legislations provides a framework that guides the municipalities on the fulfillment of the objects of local government as envisaged in the Constitution. In this regard, there is no doubt that there is proper and clear legal framework for all municipalities to operate and ensure that they achieve the objects of local government. Moving on to the next slide, as already alluded, this paper creates an understanding on the effect of political environment on service delivery, and with specific focus on three variables, which in this case, your political instability, patronage, as well as factionalism. It is exploratory in nature, in that it is meant to delve more on the already existing conclusions that are based on the research that was conducted in 2018, and therefore drawing lessons from different local government settings. The next slide just identifies some key concepts which will form the basis of this presentation. As already indicated, within a political environment, this research is looking at political instability, factionalism, as well as political patronage. Moving on to the next slide, I'll start by defining political instability. I like the definition by Morrison and Stevenson of 1971, which defines political instability as a condition in a political system in which the institutionalized patterns of authority break down, but add that the expected compliance to political authorities is replaced by political violence. Precisely, it means that within a political system of local government, there are certain institutionalized patterns of authority. When those patterns break down, that leads to political instability, which in this case, Ozia, Robbie, and Swagel identified certain costs or consequences that arise due to political instability. There is no doubt, according to the said authors, that political instability contributes to high rate of corruption and underdevelopment, thereby reducing investment and economic development in a certain setting of government or even local government. Accordingly, political instability can lead to political assassinations as well as factional violence and even trends of factionalism and patronage. In relation to this, there is no doubt that no investor would love to come and invest in an area or a setting where there are high levels of political instability. And secondly, it is clear that when we speak of political instability, it is associated also with elements of factionalism as well as political patronage. I'll move on to the next slide. Whilst I'm presenting on political patronage, I'll start by defining political patronage as per Moses 1991. It is defined as a relationship in which, as a special favor, a person or principal provides for his client or agent access to scarce resources that are not universally accessible. In this definition, it is clear that in a patronage relationship, there is a principal and an agent, or there is a patron and a client. Furthermore, what characterizes this relationship are elements of inequality and difference in power, as well as exchange of different and unequal resources. I'll move on to the next slide, still continuing with political patronage. It is clear in terms of Mamokgale 2015 that those who are in power use appointing authority to recruit their cronies, kins, friends to head crucial departments. And those that are recruited through the system of political patronage are used to perpetuate tender corruption through undue influence of procurement processes, coercion, mismanagement, as well as theft. The focus mainly is when appointing is on cadre political affiliations, whilst overlooking qualifications, credential, as well as integrity. In this regard, there is no doubt that political instability is associated with political patronage. The next slide highlights the results of political patronage, as these were identified by Kopersky in 2011. And I would still confirm that these are applicable in an environment where there is high level of political instability as well as political patronage. If we speak of institutional instability, there is no doubt that in a setting or in a municipality where there is high level of political instability, that municipality will at the same time be characterized by institutional instability. Where in this case, there will be some elements of staff turnover, and in that regard, the municipalities will lose capable and even qualified personnel due to the environment that is inconducive for those people. And given the fact that those municipalities will lose their competent people, those will also experience loss of institutional memories, as there will be prolonged acting appointments. In most municipalities where you would see political instability instances, there's quite a number of, especially in the senior management positions, acting appointments that are prolonged for indefinite time. And it will happen that at the end, those that are appointed to act won't be appointed permanently. And in those instances, the institution lose certain and important institutional memory. When political patronage practices are in place within a municipal environment or any setting, they tend to compromise financial management practices, as some of the practices that are conducted will be automatically outside the required framework of conducting business in as far as financial management practices are concerned and the issuing of tenders. Such environments are also characterized by poor planning, as when the practices of political patronage took place in those environments, certain appointments are done without considering the applicable requirements as well as the competencies, and thus leading to poor service delivery, and at the end will experience a lot of protest actions due to poor service delivery. Moving on again, one cannot overlook the correlation between lack of capacity and political patronage with regards to deployment of senior officials. And in relation to this, Mamokgale further concludes that powerful and stronger institutions of regulation like legislature are essential in enforcing the culture that encourages excellence within public service. However, he further indicated that patronage trends vary with some changes in the partisan composition of the executive. As we're all aware, over time, the political leadership of municipalities get changed due to elections. It happened that in some institutions, the patronage strains, they vary. It depends on the appetite of those that are in charge at a given point of time. The next slide speaks to factionalism. And I'll start by defining the term faction as it is indicated in Webster New Encyclopedic Dictionary of 1996. Factionalism is defined as, a faction is defined as a group or combination working together within and usually against the larger body. According to Rose, it emanates as an expression of deeply rooted or institutionalized differentiation within parties and is associated with patronage, self-interest, and often self-enrichment. There is this belief that because you agree to associate yourself with a certain faction, some benefits might be derived. Moving on, if you look at these groupings of factions, it is clear that within these factions there is a high degree of organization. Make no mistake, though, the factions are normally organized. They've got a shared identity, and they also have binding agreements on common goals. Some of those agreements, according to Motohi, they are related to aspects of patronage, where there are certain favors or promises of favors that could be made possible at the end of the day. Those groups are said to be disciplined, and they know exactly what they want to achieve because of a certain environment or instances in which they are formed on. And the next slide looks at the factionalism and how does it affect service delivery. And a reference here is made to some of the municipalities that the researcher happened to be following through and having read some of the articles in relation to the issues of political instability as well as elements of factionalism and patronage. I am looking here on the challenges that are faced by these municipalities and made an example of Nelson Mandela Bay Municipality, Kogisano Municipality, where it is highlighted that the challenges that are being faced by them are deeper than what we see. In this regard, it was mentioned that some service delivery protests are instigated by competing factions within the parties. And these are meant to undermine the legitimacy and efforts of the current leaders with the clear intent of replacing them in the next round of elections. In this regard, those that are in power naturally will not voluntarily vacate their positions. As a gesture of goodwill, power will be captured by force or other insidious means. And in many small municipalities, projects and programs that were designed to improve local economies were allegedly either being delayed or abandoned because of competing factions that wanted to benefit through tenders. The critical issue here is that all those who were in your faction and were critical to the success of your election will be expecting to be rewarded with senior appointments, and that is regarded as the power of patronage. What has been lacking in these instances is the decisive actions to root out these practices. And you'll find out that in these circumstances, competencies give away loyalty. I would agree with the assertion by Abraham Lincoln, where he indicated that where he captured this paradox of perceived power when he stated, nearly all men can stand the test of adversity, but if you really want to test a man's character, give him power. That is evident within the environments where there is high level of instability, factionalism, as well as political patronage. The next slide speaks to factionalism and patronage and makes reference to the speech of President in January 2019 when he was delivering a speech in the election manifesto at Moses Mabhida in Durban. In his speech, the current president of South Africa alluded to the fact that factionalism and patronage have diminished the ANC ability to lead transformation process. This has been quoted directly from the president's speech. However, he acknowledged the fact that in the last 25 years, have demonstrated the enormity and complexity on the task of redressing injustices and advancing fundamental change. And have further highlighted the fact that the past 25 years have also shown the great power of a nation working as one to achieve a common goal, which shows that South Africa people are resourceful and resilient as well as determined. There is no doubt that the issue of political patronage as well as factionalism, it is there. It is happening within our environments. And when it comes to cost of factionalism, this paper argues that factionalism increasingly is characterized by patronage as competing groups within the party sought to ring-fence their political power and the opportunities for upward mobility provided by the state. Having followed Kagisano Molopo municipality, I have to make the following comments based on Mekgula 2018's assertions in one of the articles, where he indicated that factional battles within this municipality have led to poor service delivery. Over and above that, factionalism have spread from provincial level down to local level. He made comments on the reports on intentions that were made by Kagisano Molopo local municipality to take the Northwest provincial government to court for not following procedures when placing the municipality under administration. In this regard, as we all understand that within the local government institutions, there's quite a number of political parties. DA's observation in this regard, and with specific reference to this municipality, was that this is directly related to the factional battles playing out within the ANC. And once again, they made this assertion that it is ordinary people who are negatively affected by poor service delivery. Further to that, they indicated that failing party caucuses were busy bringing motions of no confidence against each other, whilst people had no power, electricity supply, as well as refuse removal. With regards to cost of factionalism, there is no doubt that there are links between political factionalism and community protests. In this regard, SIDAT associates public protests with political patronage and factionalism, and further indicated that violence is always at the center of these protests. I've been following the story of City of Tshwane since June 2016, and also the research that was conducted by Khatle in 2016. In June 2016, the ANC announced the City of Tshwane's mayoral candidate, the former Public Works Minister, Honorable Didiza. And consequently, immediately after that, the public protests emerged after the announcements. Those public protests were characterized by violence, killings, burning of buses, and looted shops. According to the study that was conducted by Khatle, it was clear that the root causes identified were factionalism, tribalism, sexism, economic exclusion, as well as patronage politics, meaning that there is no doubt that political factionalism is also associated with community protests. In my conclusions, it is clear that challenges in achieving the objectives of local government could be due to political instability, factionalism, and patronage. Within the political environment, political instability is characterized by intra-political fightings that have a negative impact on service delivery. Some linkages between factionalism and political patronage are inevitable in a political unstable environment, and it could be summed up that in their efforts to secure political careers, people would seek support from party colleagues and patronage promises, and this building minimum winning coalition inside parties, leading to predictable patterns of factionalism. The repercussions are that all those who were in coalition to support would expect to be rewarded, whether with senior positions or tenders. Furthermore, factionalism and patronage are associated, as already indicated, with community or political unrest and lead to political instability. Once political instability is difficult to predict, it is clear that the results in most cases is catastrophic. In my recommendations, I highlight that the local government system of philosophy should depart from what matters the most, which is the objects of local government, and be influenced by the role of those who are in leadership positions, being political or administrative leaders. Decisiveness and the ability to deal with factional disputes, faction-instigated protests, and instability is required within the local government sphere. Also, decisive action should be taken in circumstances where the political environment, such as factions or patronage, counter the fulfillment of the objectives of local government. Also, decisive actions to root out factionalism practices and enforcing a culture of excellence within public institutions is required. Whilst political patronage in a form of cadre deployment cannot be totally discouraged, the fundamental issue, which is that of political education, could serve as an instrument to instill the required values, attitudes, and behaviors, leading to improved service delivery amongst cadres. However, provision of legislation should be strictly adhered to the maximum. There should be means to detect and discourage factions within the political parties. And lastly, political deployments should be backed by competencies, integrity, as well as required qualifications. Thank you very much, Program Director, Dr. Ruth. That is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vuyiwe, for taking us through a great debate on what presents challenges to effectiveness of local governance in different sectors, and how you've managed to engage existing literature on the subject. I would not want to take away anything from your presentation, but to move straight into a response from Rob.
So thank you, Robin here. Thank you for a very clear and well-detailed presentation with lots of references showing that the knowledge that you share is built on the literature and previous knowledge. As a chemist, I found it very interesting and easy to follow without the background of the knowledge of governance and political science. Of course, the subject that you talk about is very relevant to all citizens of the country, and we see it playing out in the news and you know, most evenings. In fact, traffic reports in South Africa are more related to where protest is taking place, and that protest is inevitably related to service delivery. And so we all feel experts on this, but it was very good to listen to your presentation and get some real, you know, evidence-based knowledge on this very important topic. One is tempted to go very quickly to the recommendations and see how those can be you know, be encouraged to happen, and, you know, change factionalism that disrupts service delivery. But of course, you can't jump straight there. You need to really understand the problem first before making recommendations. But I would end just this very brief commentary, because I do see some questions in the chat, and I'm sure those folk would like an opportunity to engage with you. I will end by saying this is a wonderful example of what I mentioned before as translational research, because this knowledge can help, you know, be it political parties or the institutions that, you know, that are at the cutting edge of service delivery, helping to ensure that the everyday citizen or every citizen of the country can benefit from the resources of the country and those transformational changes that our president spoke about. So with those few words, let me listen and to the other interesting questions that will come your way, I'm sure. But thank you again. We really appreciate that presentation, Vuyiwe. And it's really good to listen to a person with that much experience talking about a field that you know so much about. Thank you. I appreciate it greatly.
Thank you so much, Robin. I happen to have a few questions for you, Vuyiwe, if you would allow me, before I open to the audience to give in their thoughts. I just want to still the shine a bit before I give everyone else. I'm joking. I just wanted to learn more about your thoughts on this idea of political education as one of the key solutions to political patronage and factionalism. What would it entail if we really to think about political education, bearing in mind that when public official bearers, take up office, there are some, training programs that they go through. What is it, as somebody who's also in public office, that you think is currently not there in the training programs that exist, which could then be packaged as political education that may be offered? That's my first question. And then the second thing is around the history of local governance in South Africa. To what extent do we see similar patterns between the pre-existing governments? We're talking about prior to 1994. Does your work trace similar issues of factionalism and patronage to the apartheid era? I am just asking so that we have a much more deeper understanding of where does this challenge come from, given that South Africa is considered an unequal society, is considered a highly divided society. What could be some of the things that contribute to such divisionism within local governance? Is it just a matter of party patronage and seeking to score, political office, or we could actually see other elements being influenced by the history of the country, which would be interesting to learn more from your work. What is it you take from our history in relation to divisionism and factionalism and patronage and the whole political game that plays out in that sphere?
Okay, thank you very much for the questions, Dr. Ruth. In trying to come closer to your questions, first of all, if I speak of political education, I think in any political organization, there's a clear vision. I spoke before of the manifesto. There's a clear vision of each political party, and that vision, has to be understood by all of those who are said to be deployed. Secondly, if you look at the recent regulations on the appointment of senior managers within local government, there are certain competencies that are required of senior managers in order for them to be found suitable for those positions. And one of the competencies is political orientation. There is no doubt that the issue of political understanding and orientation should come into play when it comes to the appointment of those senior managers. However, in my history within local government and since the introduction, of those regulations, I have not seen any training or development of some nature that talks to the issue of political orientation. Remember, the competencies are those aspects which the senior managers are being tested on and are required to be developed in relation to them in the event that they found not to be political orientated. I'm making an example. So it's important that as senior managers gets deployed, they be politically orientated so that they understand the vision. Then secondly, the issue of the history of local government in relation to issues of patronage and factionalism. I cannot be specific because my research have not gone beyond or even as far back as the area of before 1994. However, as I've been reading quite a number of literature in relation to this aspect, it's clear that the issue of political patronage and factionalism, it dates back from long ago. And it's not an issue of South Africa only. It affects other countries, even though it can be different from how it is happening within South Africa, but it's an issue that is worldwide. So in relation to that one, I think that will be my response. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, dear. I guess you've given me 2 areas for further research: historicizing political patronage within local governance, and how does this have impact on effectiveness of local government actors in relation to their obligations as public officials. And I take the other research area is to look about this notion of political orientation. It seems there isn't yet much work that has been done around those 2 focus points. And I believe to all our aspiring students and those who want to do their master's or PhD within the school, these are some of the focal points that one could begin to conceptualize a research topic on. And maybe at some point we can also have a similar engagement where yourself, Vuyiwe, can be on a panel engaging with some of our students who maybe take up this subject area, because that is one of the things we aspire to do in the school, to ensure that we publicize the work that is being done by our students and bring in the rigor of the work that they are doing. I'm now just going to tend to the inputs that have been given by people in the audience. I see Sefu has said, Dr. V, what do you recommend is the solution to this visible issue of a failed system of service delivery as a result of political instabilities? In your opinion, should service delivery be outsourced to private sector? Allow me to move to a second question as well. This is from Tokozo Gumede. Thank you, Dr. Tsako, for an interesting insight into the political aspect of the gross disservice by the state to the people who put them in power. Is there a way that these types of research can be presented to politicians, as they seem not to understand the depth of the problem caused by lack of service delivery, especially the impact to the poor? Would you give us your thoughts on those 2 questions, please?
Thank you very much, Dr. Ruth. I'll start by interacting with the first question or comment as to whether I believe service delivery should be outsourced or not. If you hear my recommendations, I mentioned quite a number of aspects that speaks to decisiveness, decisive actions. So far, it has been my observations that no decisive actions are being taken in areas where it's clear that there are high elements of political instability, which leads to issues of patronage as well as issues of factionalism. More than that, Doc, You can go in any municipal environment and ask a politician as to whether within his or her environment are there any factions or not, and that person will say no. So in many cases, also throughout my experience, you'll see the results of these factions, but in some of the cases, you won't see even evidence. You'll see the results, you won't see evidence. That's why I'm of the view that there are certain actions that have to be taken by those who are in power to root out the issues of factionalism, because they affect service delivery. In my view, I don't think service delivery has to be outsourced. It's clear in terms of the constitutions as to what are the powers and functions of the municipalities. That's why I moved from the premise of the objects of local government and further indicated that those that are in power should ensure that things are happening at a local level. It is unfortunate that when it comes to accountability, when it comes to consequence management and monitoring of performance, the type of legislation and the regulations that are currently in place, they are directed only at officials. In this regard, I have not yet in many municipalities of consequence management that speaks to another leg, which is the political leg. So it's important that also our government looks at these regulations and ensure that even the political leaders are held equally accountable for whatever shortfalls that are experienced in a local environment. Then the issue of presenting this to politicians, I think I would appreciate that. However, I believe that it will be something that they are quite aware of it. As I indicated in my presentation, the comments that were made by the president during the manifesto, he acknowledged the fact that these elements are there. There are elements of factionalism and patronage, but the question is, what is it that is being done in relation to that? Because these have got catastrophic effects. I've already indicated the cases of certain municipalities where there are challenges of service delivery, people are fighting. And there was a question which was asked before as to what do you think these people want, the ones that are practicing patronage. Throughout my research and more reading that I've done in relation to this issue, it's clear that patronage is about power and resources. It is about power and resources. And those are the very same instances that are linked or even happens within the certain factions of a political party. So it's clear that also they lead to political instability, more especially within the very small municipalities. If you go, I even made an observation within the district in which I'm working in. You will see one municipality that is advancing in terms of economic development. If you look at that municipality's political environment, it's very stable. But within the same district, there are certain municipalities where there is no development at all. And those local municipalities are so unstable when it comes to political stability or instability. So it's clear that there are linkages between all these aspects. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We do have a few more questions that we'd like to slide in before our time ends. There is 2 comments from anonymous attendees. First is, so cadre deployment is not a problem if the cadres have only been through proper political training that tells them that personal greed is a no-no. The second one is, what I'm missing in the presentation is, maybe it's been in the paper, is that a distinction between a politician and officials. Much corruption and mismanagement happens when politicians tell officials what to do. So what is missing is a clear distinction between politicians and officials, because much corruption and mismanagement happens when politicians tell officials what to do. How then do you deal with a situation when the office bearer of a political party outranks a municipal colleague who, in terms of the municipality's organogram, outranks him or her? A third question, which is a double question from Tokozo Gumede, is that this is just a thought that probably needs further insight. There is a clear lack of integrity and value-based leadership as far as political appointments and or senior management is concerned within the government. How then do we instill values and integrity? It seems like a losing battle as far as conscience is concerned. Therefore, deepening the challenges of political patronage and factionalism instead of reducing the problem. Second comment from Tokozo Gumede is what can we do as academics to change the status quo? Our state is spiraling into disdain, and sooner than later, we will lose investor confidence.
Okay, thank you very much. I think the first issue was pertaining to the distinction between officials and politicians. I think in that regard, my paper is clear. Probably I'll have to share the link to my paper, whereby anyone who is interested can read through and understand everything. However, the distinction is clear in terms of the paper. Then the issue of officials who are also office bearers, that is discouraged in terms of the legislation. As a result, whenever senior managers are appointed in local government sphere, that person is required to resign from that position. It's a requirement, and the MEC for local government only approves the appointment of such incumbent if that incumbent has declared that I don't hold any official position or office within any political party. And in cases where there are some who are holding such offices, the recommendation to MEC is normally followed by the letter of resignation. What I cannot comment on is that whether those people resign because of it's a requirement or they really resign from participating in the activities of the political party. Then with regards to senior management appointment and aspects pertaining to values and integrity, I think my article have said it clearly that in instances or settings where issues of political patronage are being practiced, you'll find out that issues of competencies, clear qualifications are not properly looked at when those appointments are being made, to an extent whereby I even made an indication as to the cost of political patronage, where you'll find out that in those instances, you'll see elements of poor planning, poor service delivery, which also results to community protests. So it's evident in some of the settings where there are certain practices of political patronage in relation to the appointments of incompetent officials. In relation to changing the status quo, that one is not easy. As I've indicated initially, it's a worldwide challenge. Issues of factionalism and the political patronage is a worldwide challenge. What differs probably could be the trends of those instances of patronage and factionalism. However, if I may take that and put it within our context, I think it will be important that as scholars, we need to do more research in relation to this and try to influence those that are in authority and even our government to ensure that certain measures are put in place to change the status quo. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vuyiwe. There's one more burning question from Stimela Motaung. It says, Dr. V, I personally believe that political education should start from branches of parties so that their members on the ground should have tolerance and understanding of how government is run. What are your thoughts on this?
Thank you very much. I know for a fact that there are ongoing programs of political education that are meant for cadres or comrades. But what I cannot comment on is the content of those programs that are being run on a regular basis. Hence, I was making specific reference in my presentation that there is a need even for deployed senior managers to be orientated in terms of the political issues and the dynamics so that they understand that better. I fully agree with you that it should start from a very low level because we have got a situation whereby you will sit within one municipality with some branch chairpersons who are also officials within those municipalities. So political education is very important. I agree with that statement. Thank you.
I'd like to thank everyone for this time and remaining engaged throughout the presentation. I think time has been jealous with us. We cannot really continue. We would have loved to have a lot more engagement on this interesting topic, but unfortunately we've reached the time limit set for the presentation. I just want to take this opportunity to thank you, Vuyiwe, for availing yourself and opening our series, which really is a platform to engage about the research that is being done by alumni and well as current students within the Wits School of Governance. If indeed you are a student and you'd want an opportunity to present your work, do email me your PhD convener, or you can also email Kemantha and Lerato, my colleagues who are in charge of facilitating this program. I would also want to thank you, Dr. Robin Drenan, for making time. You know, we understand you do have a very busy schedule, but you have given us the opportunity to, you know, listen and participate in a program we are hoping is going to showcase much more of the research being done within Wits as an institution where we really do take pride in striving to be a research intensive institution. So we thank you for making time. I would really want to thank our audience for their time. It has really been an engaged event where we've learned and you've also participated through your comments, through your questions, and we hope you will make time to read the full paper. I've typed in the chat section the title. It is The Effect of Political Environment on Service Delivery, a study of political instability, patronage, and factionalism in a municipal environment. You will find this article in the Journal of Public Administration, Volume 2, Issue 3, published in 2020, pages 6 to 18. Colleagues, I really want to thank you for your time and wish you a pleasant afternoon. Until we meet again, have a good day.